Have you ever had a moment where you thought, enough, something has to change? Well, for me, that moment came in a client meeting where I walked in and the client looked me up and down and said, "Oh, I guess your company just hires pretty young blondes." And I went back to my manager and said, "Hey, what should we do?" And he said, "Don't do anything because you'll ruin the relationship." And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. 10 years of working in tech boys clubs, sleazy executives, I found out that a male colleague in the exact same role was getting paid $40,000 a year more than I was. And I knew that I had two choices. I could either accept it or change it. And I chose to change it. In 2015, I co-founded Work 180, a place where women could go and find employers that genuinely want them there. And we flipped the traditional job platform model on its head. Instead of just the candidates sending in their credentials, we ask employers to show us theirs, their pay equity, paid parental leave, flexible working. And I was so passionate about doing this, I quit my job, sold my car, rented out my apartment, and not long after doing that, we got our first $1 million offer. But there were conditions. The platform couldn't be just for women, and we couldn't have minimum standards for the employers. And this was my face as I said, I think you're describing Seek? So we were broke, but we turned down the $1 million offer. And the last few years after that were brutal. I'll never forget walking into CBA, literally, and I said, to join the platform, you need these minimum standards. And very literally, they laughed me out of the room. But we kept going. We bootstrapped to 8 employees, and very soon we found that companies were starting to implement policies because of us. The first company that implemented paid parental leave because of us, domestic and family violence support. We campaigned for super to be paid on both the paid and unpaid portion of parental leave because more women retire in poverty. And that's when I knew I wasn't just building a business, I was changing lives. And in 2018, we got into StartMate. We raised $1 million through the program, our lead investor being Skip Capital, and we had some angels, and then we raised another $1 million shortly after. But raising capital as a woman has never been easy. Only 2% of venture capital goes to women. During an investor pitch once, the investor asked me to get a hotel room with him. But there were bright spots too. During another pitch, there were about 10 investors in the room and they're firing questions at me. I'm thinking, ooh, this is a bit hard. Anyway, walked out. The next day I get a phone call from the partner and he said, "Gemma, I want to apologize to you. You were the only woman that pitched us that day, and we realized we were asking you much harder questions than the men." And I was really impressed by that reflection, and they became investors. And then I'll never forget having to call my investors to tell them I was pregnant, and I was terrified despite everything that I stood for. But their reaction, "Congratulations, I'm so happy for you." And then we raised $2.2 million while I was 9 months pregnant. And I signed the term sheet while I was in labor. When I tell people that, they always call me crazy, but my response is always, no, women are really good at multitasking. And the last few years have been really hard for founders. We've had a global crisis, economic crashes, COVID, hopefully not a new Nickelback album. But what got us through wasn't luck or timing. It was doing it with grit, because we were doing something we cared so deeply about. And along the way, we've shown empathy to our clients, our community, and to our team. We had a North Star that meant no matter the challenge, we would turn it into growth. And in the last 12 months, we've had over 1.5 million women using our platform to find their next employer. In the last 12 months, we've improved over 4,000 company benefits that have positively impacted more than 600,000 employees. Thanks. So why did I decide to share this with you? Because grit and empathy, they're not extraordinary qualities. They're choices. The choice that you make to sell your car, the choice to say no to an investor that doesn't align with your values, the choice to keep going despite being laughed out of the room. And we've proven that you can grow a business and do good. But to finish, I would like to speak to both the female founders in this room, the first that have raised capital. You have beaten the odds. And to those that haven't raised capital yet but want to, keep on going because you are no less extraordinary. Thank you.